on Australia's business channel. This is Mediaweek.
Hello, welcome to the program. Ahead, Ten's full-year earnings hit by expensive TV sports contracts. Nielsen's global president of media products on why mobile is the next big growth area. And we'll be joined by Trudy Jenkins from Delicious as the magazine celebrates its 10th birthday. But first to 10 Network's annual results, revealing a tough year as the broadcaster restructured and slashed costs. Interim CEO Lachlan Murdoch says the company is now positioned to offer what advertisers want.
The bold and irreverent positioning of 10, we were moving away from that. We are now moving back to it and investing very heavily in our bold, irreverent sort of brand positioning. That's what advertisers want. The advertisers want from 10 an under 40 demographic. They want us to be bold, and they want us to be different. They don't want a Channel 7 clone, and they don't want a Channel 9 clone, and it's absolutely what we can't be. So 10 has been revitalized. One, we've doubled the ratings in our core 25-54 demographic, and it is now of a size and importance where it can leverage with the other channels. 11 is brand new and is the #1 digital channel in Australia.
Let's get the view on 10's result from our co-host, James Manning, the editor and publisher of Mediaweek. James, great to see you. What did you make of the result? What does 10 need to do to improve?
Yeah, the bottom line makes pretty grim reading. The good news is for 10, they've done some good work on their digital channels. They've dumping most of the sport, keeping a few things on weekends. They've upped the ratings, doubled the ratings to that sort of core male 25-50 roughly audience. 11's going pretty well, but they've had to, take some of the prime content from the main channel. So they've just got to get their ratings firing on the primary channel now. The strategy 6 or 7 still a bit up in the air. We'll know next week if that's going to look much different with the project going to an hour. Lachlan Murdoch talked a bit today about the breakfast strategy. There's $100 million in the market, they figure, at the moment for breakfast television ad revenue. They're only getting $3 million of that at present. So they figure if they can get into that space, they can, in theory, they should be able to at least double, triple that revenue with, a fairly modest increase in our audience share.
Was there much mention made of the state of the ad market?
No, he did that a bit earlier this week. He talked a bit about, look, it's not looking great. The thing he did talk about, which was interesting, was he compared themselves to 9. He said, look, if you take from the figures from 7 p.m. through till 10:30, we're actually rating better than 9 is. So they were sort of even though it's not the main story, they should be going after the top spot, and they probably, they'd like to be there. But they said, look, it's not maybe as bad as you think. It's 9's not doing great, and we're probably, doing a little bit better than they are.
All right, well, let's get the traders' perspective on the 10 numbers and also the other media companies out with results this week. Here's Chris Weston from IG Markets.
Yeah, good afternoon. We're seeing a number of companies' reports. 10 is an interesting one. We haven't really seen anything that is overly compelling. It's quite hard to gauge the stock considering as the ASX is down and we can't really see how price movements are going through. The net profit at 74.1 million was probably just a little bit shy, although the guidance that they'd given back in August was for a EBITDA of around about 171 million. That came out at $172.5 million, so just a little bit better than in terms of what we saw with EBITDA. Most of the declines coming through their television network, where we saw television EBITDA down about 20-odd%. That is very well primed. If we do see a recovery, there is no better stock in the ASX which is really going to leverage off that, given how cheap it is at the moment. They did see some strong restructuring charges, about 85 million, which was above what they previously guided, and costs in general blew up about 8 or 9% as well. Now, cash flow was down about 8.7%. We saw net debt increase to about $415 million. Nothing in the outlook which is really compelling people into the stock today. They did say they are well positioned for 2012, but again, they didn't give anything in terms of quantitative numbers. If you look at Oddstar, we did see those numbers, the subscriber numbers increasing by just over 1,000 subscribers, taking the total numbers to around 765,000. The disappointing side of things, I suppose, with Oddstar was the churn rate. That increased 10 basis points to 1.4%. Everyone really looking at what's happened with the takeover. They still seem very confident. They said that they expect a transaction by the early part of 2012. although the decision is expected to go through on the 30th of November, so really all eyes on that. And earlier in the week we saw Southern Cross Media. The market seemed to like that result to a degree. We did see revenue down about 2.7%. If you actually look at what the market was quite pleased about was the synergies they got from the Asteria takeover, and that seems to be running at the top end of expectations at the moment. So that looks like a reasonably attractive place to be in terms of the media stocks at the moment.
Another big story, of course, during the week, voting at the News Corp AGM revealing the level of disquiet over the News of the World phone hacking scandal, with an overwhelming number of investors, 86% voting in favour of Rupert Murdoch's remaining on the board of directors, but the margin was slimmer for his sons, James and Lachlan. Let's get James's view on this story. James, obviously protesters outside the AGM in LA. What happened inside?
Yeah, well, there was, as we expected, there was quite a substantial vote against. You know, they 5 directors, I think, up for re-election. Family members, James and Lachlan amongst them. If you take out the non-family part of the shareholding, it's sort of 2/3 of the people, you know, didn't want those 5 directors back on the board. So a fairly big protest vote linked to, obviously, to what's been happening in the UK with the phone hacking and all that. I think a lot of people are still going to, you know, want to see some action taken about that. I think News is thinking, look, let's wait till the police report comes up. We've talked about that a lot. So there'll be something happening eventually there, and then we'll see some sort of, you know, I can't imagine what's going to happen, but there'll be something done. I think that they'll try and appease a lot of the people who think, you know, they need to be a board that's a bit more, you know, accountable to the actions going on.
Okay, all right, another story, of course, this week, and that was with the communications regulator, the ACMA, investigating whether the Nine network breached its licence in broadcasting anti-poker machine legislation comments during a rugby league telecast. The Australian Online saying it has a letter from Nine's managing director Jeffrey Brown to an NRL club offering to air concerns about the planned laws. Well, with more on this, we are joined now by the Australian's James Masala, the journalist behind the story, live from Canberra. James, thanks so much for your time. Just firstly, how did you get hold of that letter?
Good to be with you, Bridie. Look, if you'll excuse me if I don't quite reveal exactly how I came across that letter. It's something came to my attention about a week ago or so, and something I was chasing for a while as a result of that. What the letter sets out, as you alluded to there, is it's a letter from Jeffrey Brown, the managing director of Channel 9, to the NRL club, the Dragons CEO Peter Dowse, and in it he essentially asks Dowse to provide him with information for the sort of anti-pokies campaign, because Channel 9 was on board with it and would like to sort of put a balanced view of the debate across, essentially.
James, have you heard from Nine yet about what you've been putting online and in the newspaper? And why were they involved in this? Was it sort of linked at all to the NRL rights, do you think?
I'm not sure about whether it's linked to the NRL rights or not. I did speak to Nine yesterday briefly. They weren't saying much, to be honest. They confirmed the existence of the letter, and they said, look, essentially this speaks for itself. We'll have no further comment to make on this matter.
James, we know that the ACMA is investigating. I mean, what could be the likely ramifications? I mean, is Nine's licence, I mean, are they in trouble with that?
Look, as you say, ACMA announced they were investigating this about 2 weeks ago, October 4. Now, I understand that ACMA actually is aware that this letter exists. It obviously didn't come from them, and it's something that's, I guess, helping form the basis of their investigation. They're saying, though, they said to me yesterday, that these sorts of matters, they don't rush, that they could take weeks or potentially months, essentially, before they conclude this. What's really at issue here is whether or not Channel 9 has actually breached its broadcasting licence by, I guess, undertaking or taking part in this campaign. Now, Andrew Wilkie yesterday, and also Nick Xenophon, the lower house and upper house MPs who are sort of stridently anti-pokies campaigners, they've both said, particularly Mr Wilkie, they were quite strong on this and said, look, Channel 9's colluding with the NRL, with Clubs Australia, they have to explain themselves. Now, look, it's not immediately clear that there's a high level of collusion there, but I guess what the letter shows is that Nine was involved in this and looking at this and getting involved in this a few months before the 2 Channel 9 commentators, Gould and Warren, made the comments during the preliminary final. So, look, there does seem to be a case for Nine to answer, but to what extent or whether they'd actually have their licence revoked, well, it'll be a few months before we know.
We'll wait and see. James, thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure to be with you.